Hello, and welcome to this week's Peter's Perspectives. In this week, we're going to examine further the talent shortage that I've talked to you about before. And we're going to demonstrate that this talent shortage is here to stay and into the foreseeable future. And specifically, the talent shortage for IT and engineering talent is going to be particularly acute. So let's start with the broad demographics. 3 years ago, the United States went through an inflection point where we have fewer people coming into the workforce than we have leaving. So with more people leaving than fewer people coming in, we have a smaller labor force. Now in COVID, this was accelerated dramatically. And during COVID, we had large numbers of people leaving the labor force, retirements, or going into other roles. And so at this point in the United States, we have over 2 million people less in our labor pool than we did pre COVID. Now, as we look at white collar roles, we can see that this intensifies further. And the reason for this is that the immigration is less able to fill this gap than it is in blue collar roles. And as we move to IT and engineering, it further intensifies, both because immigration is less able to address this issue, as well as the natural constraints we have in our educational system in minting new engineers and IT professionals. Now, when we combine this with the dramatic increase in demand for engineering and IT services, we can see we've got a big problem. This demand is being driven primarily by companies investing more in IT for automation, as well as IT to compete with one another and building these digital platforms. And as we've talked about previously, these digital platforms consume immense amounts of IT and engineering talent. And as we project this into the future, we can see an exploding demand for IT, as well as a shrinking or a finite supply of IT talent. Consequently, we can expect a continuing shortage which intensifies over time. In fact, for those firms who are hoping that the next recession um, solves this problem, the depth of this talent shortage is such that unless it's a very deep recession, we will continue to have a shortage for IT and engineering through a recession. And even if it is a deep recession, this will be only a temporary respite, and then we'll return to this long-term imbalance between demand and supply. This requires firms to rethink their strategies. Every firm, however large or small, needs to think about expanding their access to talent. Now, a simple way to do this is to leverage the work from home better than we have. We can access new cities and underused labor pools throughout the United States and Europe and Canada and other locations. In addition to that, undoubtedly, the larger firms will have to accelerate their use of offshore offices in other countries to be able to attract tech labor. And even with these things, it looks like most firms will end up being more dependent on third-party providers of talent to fill their needs. In effect, we're in a situation where hire everyone you can and use a third-party provider to fill the gap.